Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CyberWire's Hacking Humans podcast, where each week we look behind the social engineering scams, the phishing schemes, and the criminal exploits that are making headlines and taking a heavy toll on organizations around the world. I'm Dave Bittner from the CyberWire, and joining me is Joe Kerrigan from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
We got some good stories to share this week, and later in the show, my conversation with Jonna Mendez. She's a retired CIA intelligence officer, and she is the former chief of disguise for the CIA. Interesting conversation for sure. Have you ever been to security training? We have. What's it been like for you? If you're like us, ladies and gentlemen, it's the annual compliance drill, a few hours of PowerPoint in the staff break room. Refreshments in the form of sugary donuts and tepid coffee are sometimes provided, but a little bit of your soul seems to die every time the trainer says, "Next slide." Well, okay, we exaggerate, but you know what we mean. Stay with us, and in a few minutes, we'll hear from our sponsors at KnowBe4 who have a different way of training. All right, Joe, we don't have any follow-up this week, so why don't we just jump right into our stories? You want to kick things off for us?
Dave, it's time for Joe's Classic Cons Part 3. These are cons that are from the old days, or maybe now you might see them. They're not what you would consider internet scams. They're more like in-person scams, right? These are things that you should, but they're still social engineering, which is very important. And the first one I have is the lottery scam. And this con requires some pretty good storytelling on the part of the scammer, and maybe an inside man would be helpful. But here's what the scammer does. They approach somebody and they say, "I've won the lottery, right? I've got this lottery ticket, and maybe I've won $1,000 for the lottery, right? Maybe it's a pick three, maybe it's a fake Powerball ticket. It's a scam, so the ticket's fake. And maybe I've picked out 6 of the 7 numbers, so I get $1,000. But I can't claim the cash because I owe money to the government and they'll confiscate it. Or I'm an illegal immigrant, and when I go to claim the prize, I'm afraid I'll be deported, right? So they'll do this. So what they'll do then is they'll say, and this is a very useful tool in conning. They'll say, does anybody have any options? Or how can we overcome this, right? So they'll start brainstorming. At some point in time, they're going to have the victim of this scam verify the numbers. And in the old days, cons would provide forged newspapers as proof of the winning numbers, right? So they'd print up a fake newspaper and they'd have the numbers in the newspaper. These days, they use a fake hotline or a website, right? Because anybody can set up a website. And if you set up a website that looks like a lottery website, or you set up a phone number is easy enough to set up with a Google Voice number, you can put a recording on that.
Right.
And since the ticket is completely fake, the number and the website can be printed on the back of the ticket, right? Once the story is spun, the con offers to sell the ticket at a discount, right? And that's when the victim of the scam says, "Yeah, it's going to pay out $1,000. I'll give you $750 for it," thinking that they're going to collect and make a profit of $250. But of course, the ticket is fake. If necessary, there's an inside guy who says, really, you should buy the ticket. A lot of these, both my scams today have the possibility of having a second person who looks like a bystander or maybe is inside with the victim. And of course, when you go to claim the winnings, the ticket is fake. Now, here's what's interesting, Dave. My last job in what I describe as my brief and failed sales career, I was selling printers. And one of the lines of printers that we sold, I think we had a couple from a company called Zebra, and they're actually still around. And they make these printers called direct thermal printers. And they're not that expensive. And all you need is a direct thermal printer and a roll of direct thermal paper that looks like a lottery ticket paper, and maybe even get some information printed on the back of that paper. And I'm sure you can order that probably online, have it printed up, or maybe you can actually steal some lottery paper from somebody, because all these lottery vendors have rolls of those lottery ticket, those sheets, and those lottery tickets are printed out on direct thermal paper. So if I get another direct thermal printer and just run that paper through that printer, there's nothing to stop me from printing up lottery tickets. This is a scam I have the technical expertise to conduct, Dave. But fortunately for the world, I'm not that good of a con man. I'd be like, hey, I have this fake lottery ticket, and it wouldn't go over well for me. I'm not that slick.
And so as evidenced by your failed sales career.
Exactly. Yes. Good point.
Yeah. Okay.
Now the next one is called the flop, or as I like to call it, the men's soccer player.
Okay. Right.
Now,
of course.
in older versions of the scam, the con usually had an old injury, and it was actually pretty dangerous. And what would happen is the con would step in front of a car and then flop onto the hood of the car. And then they would either demand compensation immediately or go to the hospital, and an examination would reveal the old injury, and the insurance company would pay out. But today, there's a safer version of this con, right? So instead of getting hit, or maybe they get hit, but what they say is they're fine, the victim is fine, and they don't need any medical attention, but their computer, iPad, or maybe a cell phone has been broken. You're glad that they're not injured. You as the victim are glad they're not injured, and you just give them some money to compensate them for their damaged equipment. Now, the equipment was damaged before the incident, right? You can get this kind of equipment online cheap, right? A lot of people are selling broken cell phones. You can just go pay $10 for a broken cell phone and then lay on top of someone's hood and go, "Oh, you broke my cell phone. That was a $300 cell phone." Somebody gives you $300 and you make $290, right? It's
and you're thinking to yourself that you dodged a bullet here because they're not coming after you for medical expenses or some other long drawn out lawsuit.
Right. And now there is a lot of times there's a second person involved in this scam as well, and they don't look like they're associated with the scammer, right? They look like they're just standing there and they're a witness. So if you're sitting there hemming and hawing about paying for the damaged equipment, this bystander will come over and go, "Listen, man, you've got an opportunity here just to give this guy some cash and then walk away from the situation," right? So he'll kind of compel you. There are two things you can do to prevent yourself from getting scammed this way. Number one is do the Dave Bittner and get yourself a dash cam.
Right? Yes, that is correct. I do have a dash cam.
And it's you love dash cam videos, right?
I do, yeah. I'll admit it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I do enjoy watching dash cam videos.
I found one on YouTube from the Today Show where it was a woman in the UK, and this guy was on a little scooter bike, right? Motorized scooter. And he is in the street and she stops and he backs the scooter up into her car and then jumps on her hood, right?
Oh, yeah.
And she gets out. She gets out, and then the bystander comes over and goes, "Hey, you crashed into that guy," and starts putting the pressure on her. And she turns around and points to her car and says, "I have a dash cam." And both the guys take off. They run. Right?
Yeah, just not to get too deep into the weeds here, but there's a whole genre of dash cam videos that are called brake check videos. And a lot of them have to do with there's a version of this scam where someone's out, they get themselves a $50 car. They go out on the highway. They get in front of an 18-wheeler that can't stop very quickly. They hit the brakes. The 18-wheeler taps them from behind, and lawsuit.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times they'll load that car up with people as well, and those people are being used by exploited, if you will, and they're being put in real serious danger. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and these guys have no compunction about doing that. Everybody load up in that car and slam on your brakes in front of an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
These people are horrible people.
The drinks are on me, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing you can do to prevent this is as soon as this happens and you think you're being scammed, insist upon calling an ambulance or police and filing a report. Say, no, this is not going down without this being officially documented. It's okay. I'll risk having this mark on my insurance, particularly if you see something where it's obvious to you that these guys are trying to scam you. Usually when you insist upon calling the police, they'll leave because the police probably know who they are.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's one to look out for. And as always, spread the word to your friends and family about this one. It seems like these sorts of things are proliferating, I suppose, with fewer people being out and about at the moment. Maybe people are taking a break from it, but who knows? Because you also have, desperate times. People often stoop to these sorts of things when desperate times come upon them.
Yeah.
My story this week, it actually comes from Twitter. It comes from a gentleman named Aaron Guys. I believe I have his last name right. It's could be a tricky one, but he tweeted, actually did a video capture of a series of scammy incidents that popped up on his iPhone. And Joe, I know you're an Android guy. I suspect there's probably a similar version of this that pops up on the Android site. And this is, or on an Android device. This is actually scammy in two parts. So let's walk through this together. The first thing that happens is you're browsing along, you're surfing the web, minding your own business. You go to a site and up pops a pop-up that takes over the entire screen.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
From the web browser.
And this on your web browser. You're in your web browser, this pops up and takes over the entire screen. It says your iPhone may be hacked due to recent surfing on suspicious sites. So this is your fault, right?
Right, exactly.
Your personal data on this iPhone may be stolen via hidden scripts by cyber criminals. In case it happens, they can access all other Apple devices linked to this Apple ID and are vulnerable. Your devices may be blocked today if no action is taken. Install the most trusted cybersecurity application and activate for free to protect your Apple ID credentials and your iCloud data from loss. And next to this message, it has a picture of the icon that Apple uses for system updates. So that makes it look more official.
Right.
And there's a countdown clock at the bottom.
Yeah, I noticed that.
No
it looks
reason
like
whatsoever. It's like counting down from a minute. I don't know what's going to happen. If you don't go in, in time, your mobile device is going to burst into flames. Or
right. Well, this is part of the pressure, Dave. You better do it now.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. So that's part one. And this, first of all, this type of thing makes my blood boil. This is one of the worst things about modern life online are these horrible ads, and they sneak their way into these ad server companies. Nobody wants these, right? The people who are serving the ads, the people who are hosting the websites. Everybody agrees these are bad, but these bad actors manage to sneak their way through and end up on some of these ad-serving platforms.
My question is, why can't the browser manufacturers make it so that my browser can't involuntarily go full screen?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Maybe they have done that. I don't know. This does still have the URL up top.
Yep. Okay, so you click the link because you don't want your phone to burst into flames.
Right.
And it takes you to an app called Ad Security Center. And this is an app you can download, and it's listed as free with paid options. There are things you can pay for, but the app itself is free.
And it says the most trusted ad blocker in the world.
Right.
And then underneath there's two speech clouds. No ads. Cool.
Right. Now, it is rated 4.1 out of 5 on the App Store. But if you go and look at the reviews, the reviews are pretty evenly split between 5-star reviews and 1-star reviews. Right? And many of the 5-star reviews are suspiciously written in Russian.
Oh, are they also suspiciously similar?
They are.
Uh-huh.
And the bad reviews are also very similar. Basically, they say things like, this app is a scam. This app just takes your money. So this app is that type of app that is referred to as fleeceware.
Fleeceware, yep.
And because it fleeces you out of your money. And the way it works is you get a free 3-day trial of this app. And then after 3 days, it automatically starts billing you, I believe it's $10 a week.
Through your Apple account.
Through your Apple account, right?
Right.
You start getting billed $10 a week for this app.
Yep.
Which is excessive. It's $500 a year.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
And the 3-day trial period is also ridiculous because that doesn't give you enough time to cancel.
Yeah.
Right? There may be something in the T&Cs that say terms and conditions that say you have to let us know within 48 hours that you want to cancel. Well, that means you have 24 hours to evaluate the product and decide you don't want it, right? And there's no way to opt out of paying this, right? There's no way to say, I want to go ahead and do this. You have to enter your payment information is actually already entered because it's in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store if they have something similar there. And you're just hosed. Then you have to call Apple. And one of my big concerns about fleeceware is that there is no financial incentive for Apple or Google to remove these from their app store because they take a pretty big cut of those in-app purchases like this.
Right.
And that needs to be addressed.
Well, I mean, I'll say, to their credit, I think of the app stores out there, Apple does a good faith job of trying to clear out these sorts of things. I think you're right that they are incentivized not to.
Right.
There have been occasions where, for example, there was a time when I had inadvertently subscribed or renewed a subscription to a magazine that I was no longer interested in. And I dropped a note to Apple on the App Store, and I got a note back within a few hours that said, "Yep, no problem. Here, refund. No worries. If you have any more trouble, please let us know." So, at least in that case, Apple was responsive. But even if I would imagine there are a lot of people who they get billed their first round, their first $10, right, and they spot it. They get a bill from Apple or whatever, and they go, "Whoa, wait a minute." They disconnect. They remove the app. But they don't go through the hassle of asking for a refund. They just figure, oh gosh, I got scammed. Well, $10, not the end of the world. Yeah. And so these scammy fleeceware folks profit. Right.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure that happens at least 50% of the time. That's me just taking a wild guess, but I'm sure that happens frequently, just as you're speculating.
So I think the lesson here is if you find yourself with one of these apps, it's that whole too good to be true kind of thing, make sure that you look at the terms and conditions to see what they're going to be billing you. And if they're going to start auto billing you anything, especially if it's on a weekly basis, delete that app right away. Just get rid of it.
A weekly basis is a couple things here. There's the old Krebs on security line. If you didn't ask for it, don't install it, right? This is just something that came up on your web browser. Don't do it. Don't install it. And then I like to say, this is the Joe Kerrigan line, look at the reviews and then look at the 1-star reviews. That's how I judge a product, whether it's on Amazon or any place. I look at the 1-star reviews and I see what they say, right? And I compare them to like the 4-star and the 3-star reviews. And if I see like 3-star reviews that say this product's okay, or if I see 4-star reviews that say here's some things wrong with the product, then I see 1-star reviews that say mine was broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I say, okay, go ahead and buy the product. But if I see 1-star reviews that say this is a scam, right? And here's why it's a scam, or this is a complete load of garbage, don't buy this product at all, then I don't buy the product and I look for something else. That's how I make my purchasing decision. I absolutely do not take 5-star reviews into account because you can't trust them, because nobody pays for anything less than a 5-star review, right? So they go out and they buy the 5-star reviews. They don't buy 4-star reviews. They buy 5-star reviews. So read the other reviews. Actually, it's less reading.
Yeah. That is my story for this week. We'll have a link to that Twitter feed if you want to check out the video that really lays out exactly what happened here. And thanks to Aaron Guys for posting that on Twitter. I think that's a good, useful sharing of information for everybody to check out. It is time to move on to our catch of the day. Our catch of the day this week comes from Tom Chivers on Twitter. He is at Tom Chivers. And this is a letter, and it's pretty ominous here. Joe, you want me to read it, or do you want to take a shot at it?
Dave, why don't you read it, and I'll do some commenting on the in-between, because this does have some broken English, and nobody gets through broken English like you do, Dave.
All right. Well, this one's pretty dark, so let me see. What's a good voice for this one? Let's try this. I am pleased to inform you that we have been paid to assassinate you by someone close to you, sincerely.
Pleased to inform me that you've been paid to assassinate. Pleased. That's good.
I want you to listen very carefully about your safety, and do not, I repeat, do not try in any way doing anything funny. In other words, trying to inform any security agent, because this is our business. We know how to do it best.
I like that he repeats in text.
We have our network all over the world. In order not to endanger your life, the more you are advised to cooperate with us to know if we can change our initial plan to assassinate you.
Oh, there's an opportunity here for me.
Once you are in receipt of this message, I will like you to get back to us immediately, as delay is dangerous.
There's the immediate call to action.
I wait to hear from you on this matter within the next 24 hours, and that is if you appreciate and love your existence.
Appreciate and love your existence with the artificial time constraint.
Please do not in any way communicate this or discuss this with anybody, because you wouldn't know whom you were talking with. Reply to this message now. Our watchdog are on you. Do not make any mistake. God be with you. Good luck.
And finally, the attempt to isolate you and the appeal to religion as well. This has a lot of the features in here. I love this message.
Yeah.
It is dark. You're right. It's dark, but it's textbook. And of course, it's fake. They're just trying to get you to send them money to not kill you, which they're not going to do anyway.
Yeah, boy, the threat of assassination, that is just putting it all out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bold. And this is something that absolutely gets your attention.
It's kind of like how we talk about how there's this filtration thing here, because you're either going to get two reactions to this. Either someone's going to do a spit take and laugh out loud at this, right? Because it's so absurd, or they're going to be absolutely terrified by it. I suspect there's very little middle ground here. And so that filtration thing happens, and if they get you, boy, they've got a hot one on the line.
That's right. And then they're going to extract money from you, and they're going to keep extracting money from you.
Yeah.
Until there's no more money to extract.
Yep, that's right. That's right. All right. Well, that is our catch of the day. We want to thank Tom Chivers for sharing that on Twitter. And, of course, if you have a catch of the day, we would love to hear about it. You can send it to us at hackinghumans@thecyberwire.com.
Or you can hit us up on Twitter. I am at JT Kerrigan, and Dave is at Bittner with 2 T's.
And now back to that question we asked earlier about training. Our sponsors at KnowBe4 want to spring you from that break room with new school security awareness training. They've got the world's largest security awareness training library, and its content is always fresh. KnowBe4 delivers interactive, engaging training on demand. It's done through the browser and supplemented with frequent simulated social engineering attacks by email, phone, and text. Pick your categories to suit your business. Operate internationally. KnowBe4 delivers convincing, real-world proven templates in 24 languages. And wherever you are, be sure to stay on top of the latest news and information to protect your organization with KnowBe4's weekly Cyber Heist News. We read it, and we think you'll find it valuable, too. Sign up for Cyber Heist News at knowbe4.com/news. That's knowbe4.com/news. Joe, I recently had the pleasure of speaking with Jonna Mendez. She is a retired CIA intelligence officer. She is also the former chief of disguise for the CIA, and boy, has she led an interesting life, as you might imagine. Just a delight to talk to her. Here's my conversation with Jonna Mendez.
The career journey was not a straight line at all. That's probably true for so many people. I came out of Wichita, Kansas. I was in college. I went to Europe to be in my best friend's wedding. And basically, I never went home. That's when I flew the nest. I decided I wanted to stay in Europe, and I knew I had to find a job. So I ended up just blind calling a bunch of banks, American banks in Frankfurt, Germany, seeing if anybody needed this young American woman who didn't speak German. And oddly, Chase Manhattan Bank did. They said, come on in, talk to us. Do you have a work permit? No. Speak German? No. You ever worked in a bank? No. And they hired me. And through the bank, I met a group of young Americans. There was an enormous American presence back then in Germany, military. And these young people said they were with that military group, but they were not. They were CIA. Kind of the very young professional group. And I became friendly with them and knew them for years. And I ended up marrying one of them. That was my first husband, John Gazer.
And what era are we talking about? What years is this?
This was in the late 60s, early 70s. Mm-hmm. And the thing I had going on was an abiding interest in photography.
Is this the sort of thing that we often see in movies with folks with, small cameras that they've hidden somewhere, pulling them out and taking photos of documents while they've snuck into a room, that sort of thing?
I think it was better than that. Our cameras were so small, we could put them in key fobs or big lighters. My tiny cameras, the best of them went into expensive fountain pens. So if you imagine, you could be sitting at your desk with your fountain pen. These things were silent. It was one motion. You didn't need two hands. You just needed to tap the top of your pen. You take a picture. If your boss walked out, it still worked as a pen. You could make a note. You could put it in your pocket, drop it in your purse, go to lunch with him. It was an amazing tool. That camera was called a Tropel, and arguably more significant intelligence was collected with that pen than almost any other device that we had, including our satellite systems. Because what we were looking for was the plans and intentions of our enemy. And while the satellites brought back volumes and volumes of information, they were always talking about today. This is what's there today. This is what it looks like today. We wanted to know tomorrow, plans and intentions. And so you're getting the documents coming out of getting the minutes of the meeting or the agenda for the meeting. That's what we were after. You can imagine today, if we were working today, we'd be looking to try and find out what Kim Jong-un, the plans he has for that nuclear arsenal, or what Mr. Putin has in mind for our next election. I mean, those are the questions of the day.
Now, how did that beginning with photography lead to disguises?
Well, it didn't. I was having a fairly wonderful career. It was a traveling job. I mean, I was everywhere. These operations were all over the globe. But I spent 2 months one summer in the Middle East. Actually, it was in the subcontinent. And I just fell in love with the culture, everything, the people, the food, just all of it. And I came back to Washington and said, I'd like an assignment in that part of the world. And they said, there's nothing coming open for photography. There's a job for disguise coming open in a couple of years. And I changed my career track. I said, let's make me a disguise officer. I really want to do this. And that's the path that took me into disguise. It's a little far-fetched, but I was all excited. I had just discovered that I could actually control my career. Instead of sitting back and waiting to see what they had in mind, that I could step forward and make some suggestions. And it worked.
Can you give us some insights? What goes into that side of things? What makes for a good disguise? How does that work when you're trying to disguise yourself and appear like someone else or blend into the background?
Well, it's just totally dependent. It's situational. It's all over the place. What you think you need, maybe what you actually do need. Can we make it? Can you wear it? Will the climate allow it? So you'd sit down with each person that would approach the disguise branch, and you'd go through a vetting process, a requirement definition, find out what it was that they needed to accomplish. When we were putting these things together, we were referring back to some colleagues, some professional colleagues out in LA, in the makeup departments and the special effects departments. One of them was named John Chambers. He was responsible for the early beginnings of a lot of our techniques. He and Tony sat down, and Chambers said, you call it an operation. We call it a performance. They're more or less talking about deception and illusion and a little bit of magic. He said, the first part of planning it, you have to know what's the stage. Where are you going to conduct this thing? Where is this deception going to take place? Because a lot depends on that. And the other part of it is, who's your audience? Who are you actually trying to fool? Is it someone in a car behind you? Is it the gate guard where you have to go in and out of the embassy proper? Or is it a video camera in the parking garage? So figure out who your audience is, what your stage is, and then you start understanding what you can get away with. So we always had in our mind that these officers were going to go out and meet someone. And the person they met was going to write a memo for the record that said, I met with this person Tuesday afternoon, and this is what he looked like. This is what he said his name was, and this is what he looked like. He was married or he wasn't married. He smoked, he didn't smoke. He wore too much cologne, he didn't wear, and everything in that memo for the record should be wrong. That was our goal. The color of his eyes, there wasn't much we couldn't change. Although I always had to point out to them that it was an additive process, always. So we couldn't make people shorter. We could always make them taller. Couldn't make them thinner, but we could make them look heavier. We could make them look older. It's very hard to make them look younger. And, a lot of the women might not be happy when we finished with them because they usually did not look better.
I'm curious, with your expertise in disguises, did that make it so that you had better skills at spotting someone who was in disguise?
I don't know that I would spot someone who was in disguise, but I wasn't walking around looking for people in disguise. But if I was looking for a specific kind of person, I might be able to find them in a crowd that they didn't belong in. I used to laugh and say, don't walk by me wearing a toupee because my head will swivel. They're always kind of awful, and I could see them a mile away. It wasn't that I could see people in disguise. It was the other half of the coin. When I lived in the Far East, our visitors would arrive in the middle of the night because the big flights from America, they would come into these desert-like conditions in the cool of the night. It was better timing for the plane. And I would have to go out to an airport and watch a 747 unload, and I'd be looking for a CIA officer who was coming to visit us, who had never been there before. I'd never seen his picture. I knew his name. I didn't know anything about him, but I had to find him in that crowd. And I always found him because there was a profile that I could see of a CIA officer, how they dress, the kind of things they carry, the kinds of bags they use, just the whole package. I could see it. I never missed my man.
Now, you have a story that you share about being in disguise in the Oval Office?
I do. We had, coming out of Los Angeles, coming out of the creative studios in the movie industry out there, John Chambers caught our eye partly because he had done the Planet of the Apes masks, and we were really interested in them. We didn't want to make apes. But the way, if you ever saw the movies, the way that he fit the eyes to those characters, there was an animation in there. I mean, they were very human. They expressed a lot of emotion. And we thought, that's a beginning of something that might be useful to us. And this is my husband, Tony Mendez. So he started a program. Let's make believable animated masks that fit so closely, that track our muscular movements, that we could actually have a conversation with someone and they wouldn't know that we had on a mask. It had to go on quickly. I mean, less than 10 seconds. It had to come off just as fast. Couldn't leave any residue. In Hollywood, it takes hours to get out of some of that stuff. We had seconds. And about 10 years after we went into that program, we started producing what we called semi-animated masks, SAMs, full face mask that would only fit you. They were made just for you. And it was a huge breakthrough. It allowed us to change everything. We could change your ethnicity. We could change your gender. We could put another face on you that would animate. So it was really quite a big deal. Well, I showed it to my boss, and he said, let's show it to the head of CIA, Judge Webster. And he said, let's take it to the White House. And I said, I don't think I can wear this to the White House. This turns me into an African-American male. And while it looks really good, it's a proof of concept. If we're going to go to the White House, we need something that I can actually talk in. So he said, make another one. So we did. We made a second one. The second one, I was younger. I was prettier. I loved this mask. I think about it sometimes. Anyway, it was every bit as good as the first one. It was actually a little bit better. I told the judge, I said, I have no ID. I don't have anything that goes with this. He said, you're with me. Don't worry about it. So we went to the White House and we met with President George H.W. Bush and a room full of luminaries, Bob Gates, John Sununu, Brent Scowcroft. The vice president wasn't there. He was late. He came tiptoeing in and missed the whole thing. But, President Bush had been head of CIA, and we had given him some disguise materials more than once for various things that he was doing. So I took him some pictures of himself to remind him what he had done. I said, so I've brought the latest and greatest new product here today to show you. And he's looking around by my chair like, where's your bag? He said, where is it? I said, I'm wearing it. It's a full face mask. I'm going to take it off now, and I'll show you how it works. And I start to take it off, and he says, no, leave it on. And he got up and walked over and looked at it more closely, really scrutinized it. Now, if you do that, you know what you're looking at, you can kind of start seeing it. He went back, sat down, said, take it off. And I did. So I'm holding it up in the air so he can see that it's like a feather. It's lighter than air. And there's a photographer in the room. I think with a lot of these meetings, they're always in there. So I hear her going, ka-ching, ka-ching. She's walking around taking pictures. I was the first one to brief the president. I was the first one to leave. So I went out into the secretary's office. That dog that they had, Millie, and her puppies, they were out there. So I was playing with the puppies. And the photographer came out, and she came over and said, what was that? What did you do? And I said, I can't tell you. It's classified. So I get this look. I said, but you photographed it. It's there. It took 10 years for me to get the picture. And after 10 years, they sent me the picture, and I'm holding the mask up in the air. That's the one they chose to send me. And they airbrushed the mask out. So I have a picture here in my office at home of me sitting in front of the President of the United States with my hand in the air.
Holding nothing?
Holding nothing. And people that come through say, up until about 2 years ago, we did not talk about masks. This is a fairly recent understanding that, yes, we can have these conversations. But all these years, I haven't been able to. And people would say, what were you telling him that's just so odd. And I would say, I can't remember. I was really into some story. I don't remember. But they airbrushed the mask out.
That's fascinating.
We didn't make it to show to the White House. That was an add-on at the very end. And it was fun. And then after that, we have seen the Bushes over the years. If you live in Washington, D.C., and there's always a ballroom somewhere and those big round tables. And he was famous. President Bush was famous for names and faces. That was one of his abiding skills. He never forgot a face. And sometimes I would look across a couple of tables and I'd see him between two people and he'd be wagging his finger at me. I see you. I remember your face. It was so funny. He did that twice.
All right, Joe, what do you think?
That is a fascinating story, Dave. That's one of the most interesting interviews we've had on here. I don't have a lot of comments about this. I think the story speaks for itself. I do like how she calls the office the Q office, right? Like James Bond.
Right.
The tale about the mask and building a mask is, her whole story makes me want to just see if I can do something like this and fool my friends, see if I can pull this off. One of the things that I really liked about her story was the way she said they tested the disguise, where they would put somebody in the disguise and then they'd take them to an agent who would then do a report on them. And if everything in that report was wrong about the person they were interviewing, then the disguise was deemed a success. That's very interesting. I mean, that's a really good test of a disguise, I think.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed that she can't make me look thinner. But she could make me look fatter. Well, I can make me look fatter too. I just need a couple of weeks of pizza and then. One of the interesting things that I thought she said was that when they were building a disguise for someone, they considered the audience. And that is a key important point that applies to everything that we talk about in this show. Every scammer considers their audience, whether their audience is every person in the world and they're just trying to filter down their audience, or whether their audience is one person, they are considering their audience. And that's something that's very important for everyone to remember about these malicious actors and anybody that's trying to, even a salesperson, right? A good salesperson considers their audience. I like her story about when she would go to the airport to meet the CIA agent. That kind of reminds me of the old DEF CON competition they used to have, Spot the Fed, right?
right.
And this was at the DEF CON conference. They don't do it anymore because now so many feds go to DEF CON and they do it openly. But they used to have a competition where if you could identify a federal agent and that federal agent would say, yes, I'm a federal agent, and you were the first person to do that, you could win a prize. Right. And they have stopped doing that, obviously, but it was a fun competition. I've never been to DEF CON, but the idea is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much to Jonna Mendez for joining us. It was a real joy to get to talk to her. If you'd like to check out some more of her stories, she is co-author of a book called The Moscow Rules, along with her husband, Antonio Mendez. Had lots of stories about the things that they were up to back during the Cold War, and quite a page turner. So check that out if it's something you're interested in. And of course, our thanks to Jonna Mendez for joining us, and our thanks to all of you for listening to us. That is our show. And of course, we want to thank our sponsors, KnowBe4. They are the social engineering experts and the pioneers of new school security awareness training. Be sure to take advantage of their free phishing test, which you can find at knowbe4.com/fishtest. Think of KnowBe4 for your security training. We want to thank the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute for their participation. You can learn more at isi.jhu.edu. The Hacking Humans podcast is proudly produced in Maryland at the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our coordinating producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie. I'm Dave Bittner.
And I'm Joe Kerrigan.
Thanks for listening.